One of the questions I'm often asked, especially actually by Muslim friends, but sometimes by others, is why are there just so many Bible translations? And aren't they all different from each other? And does that mean we therefore have no idea what the Bible actually says? And that's a really good question, but I think it is built on a number of misconceptions. The first misconception, of course, is that when you translate something, you no longer have the original meaning. And that simply is nonsense. You know, I live in a household in which there are many languages floating about because my wife went to college in France, and so she's fluent in French, and she's also half Swedish. And she'll occasionally talk to family members in Swedish. And when she comes off the phone, having talked to somebody in Stockholm, and I say to her, "Honey, what did you talk about to your sister?" she's quite able to tell me in English, and presumably the meaning she's translated in English is a good summary of the conversation she just had with her sister. And the translation from Swedish to English hasn't actually lost the meaning. We translate things all the time with absolutely no problem. But translation of the Bible, though, things get very interesting. Because one of the things I find really exciting, actually, is actually the early translations that were done of the Bible give us actually, as academics, huge confidence in the fact we have the original text of things like the New Testament. Because the first Christians, as the message of Jesus spread out along the Roman road network there in the 1st and 2nd and 3rd centuries, to go, what happened is the first Christians were so keen to be able to get the story of Jesus, the Gospels, the New Testament accessible to people, they began translating it very, very early. And many of those ancient translations have actually survived. And we can compare them with each other, and we can see how actually accurately and carefully the first Christians translated those scriptures. And the fact of those translations existing and their accuracy gives scholars firstly two insights. Firstly, how quickly the early church spread, and then secondly, how careful they were in that translation process. And then coming down to the present day, well, we have lots of different translations of the Bible, many into the same language. There are multiple translations into English, as well as thousands of other languages around the world. Of course, today, we can compare those translations with each other. So if you're not sure about the different translations of the Bible into English, you can go to a website like Bible Gateway, for example, and you can bring up multiple translations of the same passage, and you can compare them, and you can see how they are reliable, and they're saying basically the same thing. But also you get an insight, for example, into how language changes. You can see the difference in the style of English that was there in the 1600s when the King James Version was put together with a more contemporary version like today. But you can compare them, and you can see that actually we have nothing to worry about. There is reliability. But whether it's a modern translation or an old translation, the great thing is we can still take those translations of the Bible, and we can pull up something like my Greek New Testament here, which is a modern printed edition of the ancient manuscripts. And for any translation, I can go and check. I can compare it to the Greek, and I can say, oh yes, okay, that's a reliable translation of what the original writer says. We can always go back and check the original manuscripts. But one other thing that interests me about the Bible and translation, you know, when we compare the Bible with, say, the Quran in Islam, traditionally Muslims haven't translated the Quran. And if you pick up an English version of the Quran, technically that's not a translation, it's an interpretation. Because my Muslim friends believe that the Quran is only the Quran when it's in the original Arabic. And I often say to my Muslim friends, that's fascinating. It's fascinating that you believe in a God who is really limited to just one language. Because I believe the God of the universe, the God of the Bible, is not limited to one language. In fact, he's a God who loves to communicate. In fact, the Bible itself contains at least 3 different languages there within it, and Christians and Jews before them have always been keen to translate our scriptures because we believe the God of the Bible is a God of communication. And that communication, of course, ultimately is shown when God engaged in the ultimate act of translation, which was not just another fresh translation of the Bible, but was when God, as it were, translated himself and took on flesh in the person of Jesus Christ. And that central miracle at the heart of the Christian faith, the incarnation of Jesus, that first Christmas, is in one sense the ultimate act of translation. And yes, as Christians, we love the Bible. But as a Christian, I would say the Bible is the Word of God in print, designed to introduce and lead us to the Word of God in flesh.